It feels especially meaningful to come together at this time when so much is shifting in the world, to reflect, to deepen our understanding, and to align more consciously with the greater purpose that is seeking expression through humanity. We are living in a time when the world is in transition, where systems are breaking down, structures are being tested, and humanity is being confronted with both crisis and opportunity. What we are witnessing is not simply chaos and disorder, but the impact of higher energies working through imperfect forms, stimulating change, exposing limitations, and calling forth a new response, a newer way of living and being. Through the disturbances we witness in the outer world, may, may at times seem uncertain and unsettling. They are in truth signs of deep transformation within the core of humanity, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. What appears as disruption is often the visible expression of shifting energies as humanity realigns with new and higher patterns of living. Perhaps the world crisis is leading humanity into initiation, an expansion of consciousness that is guiding us towards a more awakened way of being. So, I want to begin by reflecting on the keynote, opening the door, igniting the free expression of the life of God. In this keynote is a powerful impulse, both carrying the unmistakable vibration of the first ray energy coming from Shambhala, the divine, the energy of divine will, of revelation, and of dynamic emergence and release. Opening the door is an act of the spiritual will aligned with divine purpose. The door in the esoteric teaching symbolizes initiation and the threshold of consciousness, for it is a point of entry into a higher state of being. It marks a shift in consciousness, not just progress in knowledge, but progress in expansion and awareness. The Tibetan says each must turn the key with his own hand, and each must enter through that door alone. And passing through the door, close it with care, and enter upon another stage upon the way, alone and not alone. For it requires the spiritual will to ignite the free expression of the life of God. This electric fire, the Shambhala force, ignites the monadic spark of humanity, the will to be, the will to good, and the will to synthesis. We are not talking about the soul of humanity. We are talking about the will of humanity, the monadic expression. This is happening because the Shambhala energy is impacting humanity more directly, especially in times of crisis and planetary transition. The free expression of the life of God is the release of the life principle itself. The Tibetan has asked the world servers to work with clarity, with truth, to overcome the ancient rhythms and deep-seated habits that have strained the aura of humanity. Our task is to release and purify human living as we work out and purify the glamour and illusions within our own lives. We are helping to cleanse and purify humanity and further open the door to ignite and express the true freedom of life and consciousness. In the basic sense, we are talking about group initiation through destruction. The first ray is about breaking illusions, destroying separateness, and burning away personality-centered consciousness. When the true group consciousness is ignited, it burns away illusions, revealing the one life behind all forms. The process involves the destruction of form identification. What do we mean by this? Humanity is imprisoned by the outer vehicle, the form. This could be the physical, emotional, through our desires, and the lower mind through our beliefs. This could also be institutions, nations, religions, and systems. These are forms. These forms are temporary in nature and not the real identity. When there is form identification, it creates glamours of attachment, fear, resistance to evolution and progress. This is why individuals and civilizations fight so hard to preserve what must naturally be destroyed. So we are now beyond the year 2025. The conclave is behind us, and humanity stands at the threshold of a new phase in its divine evolution. So, up until now, the emphasis has largely been upon the expression of the soul, which is the development of love, the awakening of unity, and the gradual emergence of soul consciousness. But we are now moving into something deeper and more fundamental. We are beginning to touch the expression of life itself, that which lies beyond the soul. This is the realm of the monad, the will aspect, the energy of Shambhala. It is not simply the energy of love that unifies and heals, but the energy of purpose that initiates, directs, and transforms. This is where the first ray energy, coming from Shambhala, is making its presence felt. So, from what the Tibetan indicates, the hierarchy has, for many ages, acted as a protective intermediary for humanity. It has received the higher energies of Shambhala and stepped them down, filtering, moderating, and distributing them through the energy of love so that humanity can safely assimilate them. This has been necessary because the direct impact of the will aspect is powerful, dynamic, and potentially destructive when met with unprepared consciousness. But a shift now is underway. The time is emerging when humanity itself is becoming responsive, however faintly, to Shambhala. This does not mean a full or conscious reception of that energy, but rather an increasing sensitivity to purpose, to synthesis, and to the will to good. Today, it is seen in the growing impulse towards truth, the breakdown of crystallized systems, and the demand for alignment with something deeper than outer authority. Humanity is, in a real sense, being prepared to stand more directly within the stream of divine purpose, not only as recipients of love, but as conscious participants in the expression of the will. As we enter further into the Aquarian cycle, this Shambhala's energy will be more impactful within human affairs. The Tibetan says that the Leo force from Shambhala is finding direct entry into the human center instead of indirectly via the hierarchy, as has hitherto been the case. The Tibetan, however, refrains from giving explicit teachings or detailed instructions on the Shambhala energy because it cannot be grasped through the intellect or adequately conveyed in written form. It is something that must be realized through lived experience, through the cultivation of the intuition, dedicated service and responsibility, mental polarization, and a readiness to function within the group. The Shambhala energy, as expressed as the expression of the first way of will and power, can only be contacted by those who have reached a sufficient stage of spiritual maturity and can be trusted to cooperatively wield it rightly. We are told that the initiate who has undergone the third initiation can be a can the third initiation can have a certain extent begin to consciously register and comprehend the nature of the spiritual will. So Tibetan says after the third initiation, the initiate is not concerned with consciousness at all, but with the fusion of his individual will with the divine will. So we are asked to be trustworthy custodians of the will aspect through understanding and group alignment. And only then can the will to good begin to express safely through humanity. When used incorrectly, it leads to fanaticism, control, spiritual pride, harm, and negative destruction. Depending on humanity's level of spiritual maturity and consciousness, the Shambhala energy can be profoundly powerful and at times dangerous, requiring careful handling. Humanity has already witnessed the consequences of its misuse. One of the causes lying behind World War II is to be found in a premature contact, a contact made by certain selfish minds of a relatively high quality, aided by the Black Lodge. To offset this and eventually bring about the elimination of the influence of the dark forces from our planet must come the active, conscious use of the Shambhala force by the White Lodge, aided by the men and women whose will to good is strong enough to safeguard them from personal peril in their work and from being deflected on to wrong and dangerous lines. So, what is the first way and what is the quality that it's not? So, let us be clear about what the qualities of the first way is not. So, first way is not the expression of domination or force, as it is often misunderstood. This quality of expression is about decision, direction, and release. It is not about power over others. The first ray is about will aligned with purpose. It is about ending cycles, not escalating conflicts. It is about responsibility under pressure. It is the energy of divine purpose, the force that initiates, destroys, and brings into being that which must serve the plan. Excuse me. It is not force in the personality sense, but spiritual will aligned with purpose of the one life. With that said, we must remember that the first ray energy is inherently neutral until it makes contact with the form. It is neither good nor evil. It is pure dynamic force, the expression of divine purpose. However, when this energy comes into contact with humanity, particularly with forms that are not yet fully refined or aligned, it can be distorted in its expression. So, When received through the lens of the personality, colored by selfishness, fear, or separative tendency, this powerful force can be misapplied, intensifying division, control, or destruction for personal or ideological ends. When rightly received and interpreted through the soul, this same force becomes the will to good, a purposeful, clarifying energy that breaks down obsolete forms, liberates life, and drives forward human progress. It brings about needed endings so that something more inclusive, more truthful, and more aligned with the plan can emerge. But when misinterpreted or prematurely seized by the unprepared personality, it can manifest to will to power, the urge to dominate, to control, to impose one's will upon others, often under the illusion of righteousness. This is why our present time is so significant and yet so delicate. Humanity is beginning to register this higher energy, yet not all forms are ready to receive it. And so we see side by side both constructive and destructive expressions emerging simultaneously. So we see great movements towards unity and synthesis, but yet alongside we see intensified conflict, polarization, and breakdown. So the Tibetan makes it clear that the first ray energy is not destructive for its own sake. It destroys only that which obstructs the free expression of the one life. It has been known for a long time by the mystics of all the world religions and by esoteric students everywhere that certain members of the planetary hierarchy are approaching closer to the earth at this time. The thoughts or the mental attention of the Christ and the masters of the wisdom is directed or focused at this time on human affairs, and that some of them are also preparing to break their long silence and may appear later among men. This necessarily has a potent effect, first of all, upon their disciples, and it should be remembered that the energy which flows through these focal points of the divine will have a dual effect and be destructive as well as constructive according to the quality of the bodies which react to it. Different types of men respond distinctively to any inflow of energy, and a tremendous psychic stimulation is at this time going on with results both divinely beneficent and sadly destructive. So, the same force that can liberate humanity can also, if misapplied, deepen its crisis. So, how is the first ray energy manifesting today? The first ray is not gentle and it's not subtle. It is the energy that ends, breaks, exposes, and clears the way for something new. What we are witnessing today across the world is not random chaos, but it is the systemic impact of this ray working through humanity, forcing evolution through crisis. One of the clearest manifestation of the first ray energy today is seen in wars and geopolitical instability. Nations are no longer able to sustain old alliances. Outdated ideo excuse me. Outdated ideologies or artificial balance of power. Conflicts erupt not just over land or resources, but because structures built on illusions, control, or imbalance are being forced to collapse. The first ray does not negotiate, it reveals, weakens, and then removes it. This is not the gentle energy we often associate with love and unity. The result is destruction on the surface, but esoterically, it is a purging and purification process. The Tibetan teaches that the crisis is often the precursor to initiation, and humanity today is being thrust into such a moment. It is a planetary crisis designed to force a higher alignment. This energy breaks down what is no longer serves the purpose in order to make way for something higher. It is the destruction of form, but liberation of life. And this is why it may feel so intense, uncertain, and chaotic. Because what is being asked of humanity now is not just to feel, but to stand in the will to good. People are waking up, not necessarily spiritually at first, but mentally. Humanity is recognizing and aware to the glamours and illusions of manipulation, control, and distortion. People are beginning to think more for themselves and to question more deeply, as well as rely less on imposed authority and more on inner discernment. And as this happens, much that was hidden is being revealed, such as corruption, misuse of power, lack of transparency. These are no longer easily concealed anymore. They're coming into the light. At the same time, something is shifting within humanity itself. Even in our own lives, through our own inner recognition, we destroy the glamours and illusions and have those awakened moments, those quiet realizations and reflections where we have overcome a glamour, a limitation, a separateness in our own lives. So let us talk about a little bit about the seventh ray energy. Because when there's destruction, there's the transition of reconstruction or rebuilding. So let us be clear that destruction is not the end result. It is a necessary phase in the life of all evolving forms. When the first ray energy breaks down what is obsolete and no longer aligned with purpose, it is not acting in chaos or cruelty, but in service to a greater synthesis. It basically clears the field for the seventh ray energy to work itself out. So the seventh ray energy redeems the form. The first ray comes in to destroy the obsolete form, like a demolition site. And the seventh ray energy comes in as the construction crew who begins to rebuild. So the first ray clears the path for the seventh ray to anchor the new structures that are aligned with higher purpose. The seventh ray takes the formless impressions of divine purpose and gives it tangible expressions in the world of form. It organizes energies into patterns that can hold the new life seeking expression. Through this interplay of destruction and reconstruction, humanity is being guided step by step towards a civilization that more accurately reflects the underlying order and the purpose of the one life. So the first ray is already actively working, destroying the old and outworn conditions and bringing about the wreckage of the old civilization so that the new order can be effectively brought into expression. And behind all of this disruption, change, and transformation, we can begin to sense, a deeper cause, the increasing impact of the Shambhala energy, making its presence felt more strongly within human affairs. Perhaps for the first time, as we witness on a large scale, humanity beginning to register, at least very faintly and often unconsciously, the impression of this energy of purpose upon the mental plane. This is significant because it marks a shift from purely emotional reaction towards a more mental and intuitive recognition of something greater at work happening. Of course, the masses would not identify or name this as the Shambhala energy. They would recognize it as in they wouldn't recognize it in esoteric terms. Instead, it is experienced more subjectively as a growing sense of something is changing in the world, that old ways of thinking and living no longer suffice, and that a deeper transformation is underway, both within themselves and in the world around them. So humanity feels it before truly understanding it. And humanity does sense something bigger is happening. So us talk about synthesis and the divine will. So today we can observe that humanity is being steadily driven towards synthesis. We are told that synthesis is the mode through which Shambhala expresses itself. It is aligned with divine purpose and the capacity to function as an integrated whole. So it does not erase differences or distinctions. Rather, it gathers them into a higher coherence, binding them into purposeful unity. The Tibetan is very clear and has reiterated throughout the teaching that synthesis cannot happen until obstacles are removed. So the first ray energy must work to destroy all that prevents integration and all that is hindering a needed synthesis. Human beings themselves must also destroy the prejudice, pred, prejudices, the animosity, and the fixed ideas which have prevented synthesis, which have created cleavages and hindered right understanding. At the heart of this process is what the ageless wisdom calls the will to good. This is not simply a hopeful ideal or a moral aspiration. It is a living dynamic force. It expresses itself through intelligent and purposeful activity, working steadily through cycles of change, challenge, and opportunity to move humanity forward. It organizes, redirects, and at times disrupts in order to bring about growth and evolution. So goodwill is relatively simple of expression, and of you know about all of you know about it and express much of it. For it is a human attribute lying near the surface of expression in all men. But the will to good is far more difficult to express, for it involves the ability not only to use the spiritual will, but to know somewhat of the nature of the good. This will to good is the basic quality of divine purpose involving planned activity and a definite goal to be achieved. So the will aspect is the great synthesizing force. It draws together that which has been separated, not through emotional agreement or superficial unity, but through alignment with a shared and underlying purpose. Truth synthesis is not based on feeling or sentiment. It is grounded in the recognition of the whole and the intelligent cooperation with that whole. It occurs when diverse parts consciously function as one because they are aligned with a greater intention. So the work of the destroyer has been kept relatively in the background, and only during the past half century has it become definitely active. This became possible because the whole world, practically speaking, was involved, and only in the region or the realm of synthesis can the first ray function. So throughout every stage of evolution, whether in the individual humanity or the great planetary life, this principle of synthesis is at work. It is the binding energy behind the unfolding of the plan, the force that steadily integrates life into more inclusive expression. So to live synthetically, therefore, is to perceive the one life behind all forms and to act from that awareness. Just as the hierarchy works through the consciousness of its disciples, seeing into humanity through them, we too function as a microcosm of that same process. Humanity is learning, however imperfectly, to recognize itself as a unified organism, capable of perceiving shared purpose and acting through growing understanding. The Tibetan reminds us that even the crisis himself is still in the process of deepening his understanding of the full potential of the first ray synthesis. As he states, it is well known in the hierarchical circles that first ray synthesis is something higher still than unity, and that even the Christ has somewhat to grasp, and that this new potency coming both from Shambhala and from the Father, and also from extraplanetary sources. So this reveals to us the profound and far-reaching nature of this energy, something that lies behind or beyond even our highest current concepts of unity. So this insight challenges us to recognize that synthesis is not simply harmony or agreement, but a far greater and more dynamic principle, one that is only now beginning to register within the planetary life. It is an energy of such magnitude that even the greatest lives are expanding their responsiveness to it as it pours into from Shambhala and beyond, carrying with it the next phase of divine purpose. So, with that said, I want to kind of ground things a bit and talk about what the Tibetan said. And he has made some suggestions, some few very practical suggestions about understanding Shambhala. This is from Esoteric Astrology. Um, he did mention some recommendations for the group. So the first off, to organize a group that would take this subject as the theme of their meditation through right understanding to contact and use the Shambhala force. And of course, we as a group, um, we've worked with these meditations um, through the meditation of synthesis. But he's mentioning about groups through either right understanding, through discussions, through working through the impersonality, through mental polarization. Number two, he said to elaborate on this theme of the revelation of the divine will so that the general subject may be ready for presentation to the thinking public when peace does come. So he's trying to prepare the general public for this energy that's coming in. And of course, as mentioned, the general public is not going to know about Shambhala, but we need to really ground this energy into our daily lives, into human affairs. Number three, demonstrate the three aspects, life quality and energy of Shambhala. So the first one, the will which conditions the life aspect. Number two, the will which brings fulfillment of right human relations. And I'm sure we can all relate to this here. The will which finally conquers death. And I'm sure there are groups and discussions about this, all these topics here. Four, prepare the individual for the expression of this energy. And five, there needs to be effort made to comprehend the nature of the direct impact of the first aspect, first ray upon human consciousness without the help or the stepping down effort by hierarchy. So these are practical suggestions that the Tibetan is asking us to become intelligent agents of the Shambhala energy through group work, clear thinking, and the courage to stand steady while the old world is being broken and a new one is being built. So I also want to um, talk about this slide. And there's a lot going on in this slide here. And I want to share with you. Um, so this chart is basically the outer reflection or evidence of an inner planetary process. What we are looking at here is not just social change, but the externalization of energy working through the three planetary centers, Shambhala, hierarchy, humanity. So the first column here, whoops, let me go back. The first column here I want to talk about is the institutions and systems. So I'm trying, and there could be many hundreds. I'm just trying to put the main ones here on one slide deck. So these are, just the main ones that I wanted to base off of on the seven rays. So if we look at the second column here, which the red column shows the institution systems that are out of alignment with purpose. Therefore, they need to be dissolved, destroyed. And this is where the first ray, these are the old Piscean systems here, the obsolete forms, where the first ray must destroy. And obviously, if you read through these here, for example, politics, first one, control based on fear, separativeness or separateness, corruption, education, outdated, rigid systems, standardization, institutional conditioning, memorization without meaning, healthcare, profit over healing, finance, economics, corporations, greed-based system, exploitative, capitalism, wealth, hoarding, financial manipulation, military, war-based systems, science, purely materialistic overview, science divorced from consciousness, fragmentation of knowledge, religion, dogma, separation theology, fear-based salvation system, priestcraft and control, technology, manipulation, data abuse, media, distortion, fear narrative. These are all old Piscean systems. However, when we look into the next column here, we are looking at the love aspect. The green column is the higher principles coming from the love that underlies the happenings of the time. This is the transitional field of impression. These ideas and principles come from hierarchy, from the ashram. They are translating purpose into principles that humanity can understand, This is the stepping down of the Shambhala energy, which is translated as will into love and understanding. So these principles here are not invented by our humanity. These are coming from the universal mind. These are from our solar logos. These are basically the divine spiritual laws that we, in our daily meditation, we work with. We are grounding the energy of the love aspect, the principles of responsibility, stewardship, right human relations, intuition, purpose, responsibility. These are all principles, spiritual laws that we work through into our daily lives. And then this here is the next one is the purple column is the seventh ray. So as the new human being and the new consciousness is being formed, um, the seventh ray energy is coming in and it's making its appearance felt, um, and rebuilding not only our own consciousness, but also anchoring and synthesizing these energies into form and structure. So, as we can see, the Aquarian system, the new forms that are being built for the new civilization, right governance, soul conscious education, integrated healthcare system, ethical economic systems, right sharing of resources, global stability framework, science of energy and consciousness, unified systems of knowledge, direct spiritual experience, group spirituality, ritual as living science, energy science, technology for human evolution, platforms for right understanding. So during our daily meditation and even during the new moon meditation, where we strengthen the hands of the new group of world servers, we reflect on the seed thought. Humanity must be brought to the understanding of the fundamental ideals that will govern the new age. This is what we're talking about. These are the fundamental ideals that will govern the new age. And as the ideas arrive through inspiration, through the ashram, these visions and revelations are imbued into our lives and radiated and distributed outwards into the hearts and minds of humanity. So, with that said, I think I might be over. Um, Let us remind ourselves that hierarchy work with principles, not personalities. They look not They're looking at individual, they're not looking at individual events, political sides, superficial narratives. They're looking at energy patterns, shifts in consciousness, and alignment with the plan. So I'm going to go ahead and conclude because I think I'm a little bit over.